In 1916, Njoya exercised his theological expertise in the founding of a syncretic salvation-based faith rooted in solar epistemology called Njoya. Njoya builds upon Bamun ontology and cosmogonic vision, dividing the world between the sacred and profane zones, as well as the visible and the invisible. The zone of the sacred and the invisible is that of the divine and the ancestors. For the Bamun, Yin-Yi is the realm of existence. According to Njoya, all human races pray to God in the language of their country, and not in the language of ancient times. God hears because it is He who created all men. He gave them this language. All those to whom God has given a mouth speak, and God understands them because God has given them this language. As a medical researcher, Njoya established a large variety of texts on pharmacopoeia and traditional healing, called Libonar Kompen, also Loreva Yuret. As a metaphysician, he wrote a book about the interpretation of dreams. As a sociologist, he wrote a book about matrimony and how to make a marriage last, called Loreva Nu Nguet, also called Libonar Torotan Pran, or the Book of Love. As a geographer and cartographer, he made a map of the territory called Lewa Ngu, with special consideration on the capital city of Fumba. As an academician, he chaired a scientific committee that wrote a Shumam dictionary. By 1914, there were a total of 40 Akauku schools that had spread to both Tikar and Bamileke country for the learning of the writing. Its schools were sanctioned by diplomas, all signed by Njoya. The various sections of his schools were a medicine department headed by Queen Fu Asana, a casting and carving section headed by Monliper Jimonjab, a calligraphy section headed by Yermia Jean, a weaving and embroidery section, a basketry section, and a coiffure section headed by Njachembe. Njoya also went through a series of reforms in the Mvundum of Bamun. He was a champion of human rights far ahead of his time and demonstrated the integrity of pre-colonial African political systems when it comes to egalitarianism. Njoya did not exercise autocratic rule over the Bamun. He had a large amount of official counselors and elders who assisted him. These political dynamics allowed him to engage in a variety of reforms that echo those of his distant ancestor Amenhotep III in the 18th dynasty of ancient Kimi. Some of them were matrimonial law reforms relating to dowry reimbursements in the case of marital abuses, the extension of mortuary and funerary right burials to non-nobles, inhabitants outside of Fumban, and servants who had not finished paying off their debts, reformed widowhood rights protecting the sanctity of women who had recently lost their husband, reformed laws regarding the mode of dress and ornaments, which allowed women to wear pearl earrings, copper rings, umbrellas, shoelaces, and headdresses decorated with the image of a chameleon, and other items that were previously prohibited. The protection of the environment and biodiversity, banning the cutting down of banana trees or greenery on the property of the deceased. The reformation of royal chore mandates, prohibiting the guarding of the royal palace by servants for consecutive days. The removal of certain consumption prohibitions, allowing commoners to smoke from a metal pipe and eat from metal dishes. The expansion of commercial access, allowing commoners to sell raffia palms, worms, cola nuts, honey, multicolored bags, crude oil, yam, large bananas, and metal tools. Politically speaking, Njoya also abolished the death penalty for adultery with a princess, sleeping with a prostitute, forced abortion, and engaging in spider divination outside of official supervision. Capital punishment without a trial was also banned for trespasses against the Mvun, and numerous petty offenses against royals were decriminalized. After these reforms, the Bamun had more access to the Mvun than ever before. This was even the case in the event of assassination attempts and coups. Betcom, who sought to overthrow Njoya, was allowed to stand trial for treason before ultimately receiving capital punishment. On the technology side, Njoya demonstrated many different areas of expertise, such as chemical engineering in his introduction of a pharmacopoeia, as well as the development of ink from caramelized corn, geospatial engineering in the enhancement of Bamun cartography, mechanical engineering in the introduction of a grinding mill, thermodynamics in his introduction of a blast furnace, material science in his introduction of a textile mill for embroidery, environmental engineering in his amplification of Bamun agriculture and the raising of an ostrich farm, transportation engineering in the usage of Alay palm kernel nuts to pave roadways in order to influence people to leave the lowlands and move to the developed highlands around Fumban, geotechnical engineering in his usage of lemongrass to prevent settlement erosion beneath the new Fumban Palace, as well as architectural and structural engineering in the modernization of Bamun building systems, as is exemplified in the reconstruction of the Fumban Palace after it was burned down in 1913.